Hi, I'm Elemi from Yeyeo Botanica. Welcome back. So great to see you all. Thank you so much for all the support and sharing us with others. Remember, we're www.yeyeo, and we're a spiritual and wellness supplier, which is why I do videos about all things spiritual. And I'm Elemi. I want to shout out all my people from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Woohoo! Thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about something that I don't think I've ever really seen a video about, which is signs and symptoms that a child needs a spiritual cleanse. I'm going to tell you about some signs and symptoms and some easy things to do to cleanse a child. We all have a child around us in some way, shape, or form. It's a friend, it's our child, it's family members, nieces, nephews. So let's get started on learning a little bit more about things to do for a child. This video is really a suggestion, and so I thank all the people who have suggested and brought up this subject. I think that children, oftentimes we forget about them. It's kind of like I see people sometimes when we were wearing masks. People would have their mask on, but then they would bring an infant or a small child into the store and they didn't have a mask on. So I don't think that's necessarily a judgment one way or another. It's an observation. And one of the observations I've made in the spiritual world is adults are so focused on what they need to do to be good for everyone else that sometimes they don't realize that the person that they're trying to be good for really needs their own thing. And so in this case, there are quite a few people who are on the channel who have children or have children around them, and they really have brought up as a suggestion, is there something I can do to protect my child? And so some of the signs that a child may need spiritual cleanse or some kind of spiritual work are driven by a few different indicators. And one of them is environment. If the child is in an environment where there's a lot of chaos, a lot going on, they're moving around to different places, or there's a lot of arguing or problems in the household, it's oftentimes that the child can use a spiritual cleanse. And if you'd like me to do a video for peace and protection for children, definitely comment below. 2 is interpersonal communications that the child may have. Are they dealing with a lot of people? It doesn't make a difference if they're relatives or they're strangers. Are they dealing with a lot of different people? Sometimes children are dealing in healthcare facilities that have a lot of children versus one that has less children, or dealing with a lot of people versus in an environment with less people. More people, more interaction will require some kind of clearing once in a while. 3, is there spiritual work in the air? Some kind of negativity, curses, whether it be mental work, mind magic. You can watch my mind magic video to learn more about that. Or is it physical work that is in the air that is affecting the parent? I'm here to tell you, the most vulnerable person in the household is a child. So there are times that adults really don't feel it or feel something strong, but it's affecting the child. So if there's spiritual work in the air that's negative, definitely you want to continue to keep that child spiritually safe and cleanse. And 4, is the child spiritually sensitive? If a child is very spiritually sensitive, which comment below if you'd like me to do a video on that. If a child is very spiritually sensitive, they will be much more susceptible and aware of spiritual work. There are adults who say, oh, I'm an empath. I pick up on people's energy, I feel them, I feel their emotions, all these different things. Well, that adult was a child. And when you're a child, those sensitivities are 10 times stronger. So I would say we don't want to forget about those empathic children that we have around us, or children that are especially spiritually sensitive. Sometimes, as an example, you can go into a store, and as soon as you go into the store, the child just goes off. That sometimes is an example of too much energy that the child is being very sensitive to, for those parents who are like, well, how do you know if the child's really spiritually sensitive, right? So some of the things to now I talked a little bit about signs or environmental things that can affect the child. Here are some direct things to look for. One is the child could not be sleeping well, getting up, not wanting to wind down. They're not sleeping for long periods of time. They're having nightmares, or they just seem to be tormented when it's time to sleep. Two, they're very irritable. So, they're just always irritable. You give them this, it's not enough. They're onto something else and onto something else and onto something else. Unless it's a medical health diagnosed issue, we're going to rule that off the table, then it can be a spiritual indicator that makes the child very irritable. Three, restless. Very restless. They sit down, it's moving around, they're running around, they're tearing up the place. We've all seen this in some different way. That is also a sign that the child can need a spiritual cleanse. Disruptive. Sometimes they're very disruptive. You go places, which is a little bit different than being irritable. Disruptive can be loud, can be boisterous, throwing tantrums, hard to discipline, not listening, all these different things, if these are not diagnosed issues. The number 5 thing that I would like to give you before my sweet thing is that the child is seeing things. So sometimes you see different, depending on the age of the child, you'll see them all of a sudden they're looking around. I love to say it's kind of like when you see the cat or the dog starting to look around. It's like, what are they looking at, right? So you see the child starting to look around when you do not see anything physical. So it's different if you see this once in a while normally with the child's a spiritual sight. But if you see them more looking around or looking fearful, again, that's a sign that the child may need a spiritual cleanse. Or please watch it's time for a home cleansing video to learn about how to also clean your environment. And just lastly, here are some tips on some things to do to help to clear the child. Remember that white medicine is the medicine for children. Everyone who's watched my videos know that I talk about white medicine. We can talk about different color medicine, but white is my favorite. So Cascarilla, the eggshell powder that I did a video on Cascarilla Effun. Please watch that video. That's white medicine. Using of milk. The Cascarilla, first you can put on the bed, you can put it on the child. Using milk, another white item. Using that in spiritual washes, so that when you give the child a bath, you can add a little bit of milk, just enough to turn the water white. I also did a video on spiritual cleanse of the gods, milk cleanse. Free to watch that and to incorporate that if you would like. 3, eggs. Passing an egg around the child, maybe passing it on the front and the back of the child, or putting it maybe by the bed and then tossing it outside of your home. I did an evil eye cleanse with an egg, evil eye curse breaker video with an egg. You're free to also do that particular video for the child. And lastly, smudge the child. Take him outside. If you're going to sage your house or sage yourself, sage the child. Just remember that infants, it's better to use things that are cool, as in the first items that I mentioned, older children, then you can use things like smoke, smudging, and so on. So I hope this gave you some ideas about environment, signs to look for, and some action steps to take on how to clear a child if they need a spiritual cleanse. I look forward to your comments below. Thank you for your participation, and see you next time. Ashe, ashe, ashe.